are back live, coming to you live from the studios in Round Lake Heights, Illinois. This is Your Insurance Corner, and for the next hour, yours truly, Bill Mix, president of WDMA Financial Group in Grayslake, Illinois, will be taking you through a excursion of the insurance world, and tonight we're going to cover some real-life stories, folks. We're going to kind of come off the teaching moments about Medicare, and we're going to share some real-life moments about some stuff that has happened over the past few weeks. And I think you're going to find this to be incredibly helpful. I say this all the time, that when you transition from employment or employer-based or even individual-based insurance, and then you transition into the world of Medicare, it is a completely different world of nomenclature, what's covered, how it's covered, what's it cost, what kind of approvals do I need, the different moving parts, etc. So we have just a separate matter. I'm going to digress here for a second. We have a new phone number. As many of you know who have been listening, we've gotten Sean has been on the phone a couple times, and we've gone from a perfectly sound situation to white noise. And the first time it happened, I thought I did something. So that being said, Sean might be calling in. I think he's waiting to find out what the new phone number is. I don't know if it's working or not, so we'll just, carry the ball like we normally do. But for the rest of tonight, we're going to have storytelling about different moving parts of Medicare. I'm going to have another story about healthcare.gov, and this is, again, something that you've got to pay attention to, folks. Healthcare.gov, when you need help from them because of something that a person may or may not have done, whether it's intentional or not, is not very helpful. Dare I say, at some level, healthcare.gov kind of created an I don't care attitude. Now, fortunately, we found somebody who did care, and we think we got the problem fixed, we hope. But I'll share that story with you. So there are going to be 3 Medicare stories tonight, and there's going to be 1 Affordable Care Act story. And hopefully, if there's time, I'm going to share a message that I picked up from one of my nephews. It's actually my cousin's kid, so I guess technically it's not my nephew's second cousin, second removed, but he calls me Uncle Bill, and it's cool. So I told him I loved the messages that he sent, and I'm going to use them. And his comment to me was, "Why are you stealing my stuff?" And my answer to him was, "Imitation is the best form of flattery, my friend." So if he's listening, Christopher, you're going to get your shout out later on this afternoon or this evening. This is Your Insurance Corner at 101.5 FM, WLCB, Slade's Corner, Wisconsin, coming to you live from the studios in Round Lake Heights, Illinois. If you're listening to us on stream, that's www.lakesradio.org. Go to How to Listen, click on a different ways of listening to me. The way I do it is I just go to a URL button, and I click in, and I can listen to whatever program is going on at the time. This is a small station. It is none of the producers like myself are paid to do this. We do this because we love doing what we do. Some of the guys that are on the radio here during the week are incredibly talented, very astute in the space that they live in. A lot of them are former radio guys back in the day that they just wanted to continue to do their thing that they love, and they've got 2 or 3 hours of jazz or rock and roll. There are some other programs, for example, on Saturday mornings, I think from 8 o'clock to 11. There's a sports show. There's another lady named Doris who talks to entrepreneurs. So a lot of different programming, not a lot of commercials. If you find it in your heart to look for, if you're needing a tax deduction, for example, you can go to our website at lakesradio.org and make it a small deposit to help keeping the station going, etc. Because we are basically a lean, mean fighting machine here. So with that in mind, and I got my hot coffee. Sean's not here yet, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to dial in or not. I know he was trying, so we'll see what happens. Last week, Sean and I were both on assignment. I was actually at an estate planning seminar and a study group, not a seminar, I shouldn't say seminar, it was a study group that I was invited to go to. And it had to do with legacy planning, estate planning, wealth transfer, and Medicare. And a couple other things, but those were primarily the focus of the study group. And it was an all-day thing. And then we had a chance. We were then I had the privilege of going to a Cubs game, and I believe they won in extra innings just as the rain came down. I think Michael Bush had a home run in the bottom of the ninth inning as the rain came down, and we won. But we got to go to one of the grandstands behind the stadium. The rooftops, which I've never done before. So that was a pretty cool experience. It was all paid for, so didn't cost me anything. Hopefully I'll be able to take my wife Sally to one of those things before the end of this year. Maybe not that particular venue, but one of the venues in the rooftops. So let me just talk to you very quickly about this seminar or study group that I went to, and this is for my business owner clients and people that are either in the know or are in a position where they're going to have some wealth at some point in their life, and there's going to be this thing called the estate tax. Hold on a quick second. That's a little better. I couldn't hear myself in my headset, so I had to just make a quick operator adjustment. So that's much better now. All right, so for those of you who don't know, there's a lot of wealth in this country. Billions of dollars, and dare I say, possibly trillions of dollars are going to transfer from one family to another, certainly millions, over the next, let's say, 20 years as the baby boomers start to come up into the retirement years and then pass on and then pass their wealth, etc., onto their family and their heirs or charities or whatever they're going to pass their money to. And yes, there are millions and billions of dollars that are going to be transferred. And for those people that are lucky to be in that position, I will also tell you that many of you who know very wealthy people, I will tell you, a lot of times, I would say 70, 80% of the time, they do not have their ducks in a row. I'll just give you a couple more, some more recent examples. Prince died without a will. Aretha Franklin died without a will. These are very wealthy people, had a lot of advisors, smart people around them, helping them navigate their careers, and they didn't have their ducks in a row. Historically, Papa Hallis only had a will, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, his estate spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years in probate court, where the only people who really gain the wealth are the attorneys. But for the people that have extra wealth in their lives, or have worked their butts off to get themselves in a position where they can maybe go on cruise control, sell their business off, and still have a very large estate, let me tell you what's about to happen in the next year and a half. And given the climate that we have in Washington right now, I don't see this changing direction. It could, but in my humble professional opinion, I don't think it's going to, and let me explain. Currently, as a single person, you can pass $13.61 million of your estate to your heirs estate tax free at the federal level. Now, there are some states like Illinois that are going to, tax your estate. Illinois has an estate tax, anything in excess of $4 million, for example. But we're just going to stay on the federal level for the moment. And if you're a couple and you've done your planning correctly, you have what's called an AB trust, amongst other things, a marital trust, where each of you put 13.61 or a combined $27.22 million between the two of you total in that estate. So I'm just going to round up to 28 million just to keep the math simple. You put 28 million in the estate and you figure I've got no estate tax. I'm in great shape. Whatever excess I have, it's not a big deal. My kids can handle it. They can sell off a couple things and we're in great shape. Or maybe they did what's called an irrevocable life insurance trust, or an ILIT as an example. An ILIT is basically a irrevocable trust wherein you put, in this case, a life insurance policy that you do not own, and it's now out of your estate. So when you do pass, that life insurance policy that you did not own, that is owned by the trust, even though you're paying for it, becomes available to the estate to pay the estate taxes. Now, one little caveat about life insurance. Let's just say that you don't own anything. You rent everything you have. Perfectly fine. No problem. You lease your car, you rent your house, etc. So you don't own anything. However, you own a $5 million life insurance policy. For whatever the reasons, maybe to take care of your family, your spouse, whatever, you have a $5 million life insurance policy. You are now valued from the federal government's level, you have an estate of $5 million because you own that life insurance policy. For those people that own those kind of policies, if you try to put them into an ILIT, you're subject to a 5-year look back. In other words, you put it into an irrevocable trust, you have to survive that trust for 5 years so that it does not come back into the estate. The best way to do it, which is not the most common, sadly, but it is what it is. The best way to do it is not to own the policy. Let the trust own the policy. That way it's immediately out of your estate. You still pay for it, but it takes care of, amongst other things, the estate tax, if it's done correctly. I digress. So you got $28 million in the AB trust. At the end of calendar year 2025, so on January 1st, 2026, by law, that estate tax is going to sunset. That $27 million, $27.22 million, or $13.61 million estate that you've worked your butt off to protect against being skewed by the government, particularly the feds, at a 40% clip, mind you, that exemption level is going to reduce somewhere between $6 and $7 million. Multiply that by 2, somewhere between 12 and 14 million, depending on who you talk to. And that number is not quite settled yet, so let's just use 7 million to 14 million. So you had an estate worth 13. Now you can only exempt 7 as an individual, and you can exempt about 14 under this new rule, plus or minus a few $1,000 in a year and a half from now. A lot of people that did a lot of hard work, a lot of planning with 13 or 27, $28 million are now faced with a potential tax if they've got a $27 million estate of $5.2 million that they'd have to pay the government when they pass away. There are ways in which you can address that, but now it's been a long time since this estate tax thing has been going. So now you're older. You may have some moving parts that you didn't have when you first designed your estate. Estate planning is not a static thing. It doesn't get done once and be done. Okay, I'm done with that. You constantly have to be tweaking it, to be perfectly frank with you. It's just like a will or a trust. You should be constantly looking at it, maybe once every couple of years with your family or with your attorney, depending on how big of a state you have. But this is real. This is real, folks. And I don't think the government's going to have the cojones to fix this problem, nor do they have the culture in Washington right now to fix this problem. So a person with a $27 million estate may be looking at I may have done that on a $13 million. Let me just see here. 27. Let me just do a quick little thing here. Hold on a second. So let's see, 14 million times one more zero times 0.4. Yeah, 5.6. So if you have a $28 million estate and it drops back down to 14, you can only exempt 14 from your estate rather than 28. That's a big nut. So now you're exposed to about $5.6 million of estate taxes. And if by some chance you happen to be living in Illinois, anything in excess of $4 million is estate taxable. So now let me add one other little oh by the way clause. A lot of entrepreneurs have properties in multiple states. If you only have a will, every state, which is fine at some level, it will allow the estate to go through in an orderly fashion. However, if you only have a will, every state is going to probate the property in that state. So if you have a business location or a home or some kind of property that you own in a different state other than the one that you live in, and you only have a will, the family's going to probate the stuff in the residence state that you live in, and then they're going to have to go into those other states wherein you owned property or businesses, etc. It can get ugly really fast. This is where estate planning becomes a very big topic matter. And this is this kind of stuff that we were reviewing and looking at different creative ways in which to get our more wealthier clients out of trouble, or at least give them some ideas of what they want to do if they're interested. There will be clients that says, I don't care, I'll be dead. Or I don't have anything to, I don't have any, my estate's not going to go to anybody because I don't have any extended family members. Well, you probably do, but maybe they're cousins or aunts and uncles that, you hadn't stayed connected with. But there is an estate. The money's going to find a place. I've got one client who does not like the government at all, and that person is setting up herself so that a lot of the estate are going to be in charitable trusts where she can draft income from those trusts, and when she passes, the estate, the value of that trust will then go to the charity of her choosing, and it's no longer in her estate immediately upon her death. So she avoids paying a ton of estate taxes. So that's the kind of stuff we just learned. We are now going to go to our storytelling. I wish I had a good way of doing the storytelling like for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or something like that, but I don't. And Sean's not here to help me at the moment. So we're just going to go with our first story. This is a Medicare story. I promised each person, because I told them they're going to be a part of my show tonight, I told them I would not use their name. I will certainly use their circumstances, but I will not use their name. So we're going to call this first person Jane. And I've known Jane a long time. Apparently Jane didn't know what I did, but that's okay. It's not like I go around banging the drum, look at me, look at me. Although maybe I should. Maybe I should. So she calls me up, and first thing she says to me is, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, what are you sorry for? I'm sorry because I didn't know what you did. And if I had known what you did, I would have come to you. But we worked with this other agency, and I'll tell you who they are in a second, because it's a part of the story, and this is a part of my aggravation with parts of people in my industry who, whether it was innocent or not, have put this particular client in a major peril. So she comes back from vacation, realizes that she had not signed up for her Part D yet. She turned 65 in May. So on May 2nd, she goes online, goes on Medicare.gov, starts to fill out the application for her prescription program. And in that program on Medicare.gov, it requires you to fill in your Medicare number. And that's when she had her aha moment that she didn't have her Medicare number. So she consults with a couple people, and that's when she calls me and says, sorry, and asks me if there's any way to fix this. And then she tells me that she has a Medicare supplement. And I stopped her there and I said, how did you get a Medicare supplement without your Medicare Part A and Part B on the application? And apparently this agency, it's called the Boomer Agency or something, says that they do it all the time, that Medicare allows for applications to be done within 6 months of you turning 65, and they presume, meaning this agency, presume that you're going to go get your Medicare numbers. Well, she had her Medicare supplement and her card, but because she didn't have her Medicare Part A and B, she has let me underscore this word 100 times, she is not covered for anything in the month of May, starting May 1st, in the month in which she turned 65. She had done a lot of planning up till that point. But the agent who signed her up for the supplement never told her that he needed, or I should say, that Jane needed her Medicare Part A and Part B numbers in order to execute and finish her application. They just went ahead and submitted it to Blue Cross. And it blows me away, folks. Blue Cross issued the policy without Medicare numbers. When I talked to my Blue Cross people here locally, they were blown away that happened. I was blown away because I don't do Medicare contracts unless I see the card or I have knowledge of your number from Social Security. That's where you get the Medicare, that I can see the number. Because oftentimes I'm going to take a picture of your card and submit it with the application. That way there's no mistaking what the number is, irrespective of my writing style or anybody's writing style. There's no mistaking what Jane's number was, but she never had it. And she didn't find out until May 2nd that she, at that point, didn't have prescription coverage either. So for the month of May, Jane is totally without health insurance coverage, completely without health insurance coverage. So within a day or two, I discovered, I didn't know this existed, but there's a company that will provide you Medicare gap coverage, kind of like a short-term medical plan for people that forgot or didn't know to sign up for Medicare because they're working or because they didn't think they had to or whatever the case might be. They didn't sign up for Medicare in a timely manner. And I'm not talking about the supplement now. I'm talking about Parts A and B. Remember, the month in which you turn 65, on that month, the first day of that month, that's when Medicare Part A and B will take place. If you turn 65 on the 17th of May, it's May 1st, period, full stop. There is an by-the-way clause that if you turn 65 at the end of the month, it may be retro to the back month. I'm not going to get into the weeds because it gets really confusing. Just know that generally speaking, if you're turning 65 in a month, it is the first of the month when Part A and B take place, and typically Part D too, but A and B for sure. And by the way, you can't get Part D without getting at least Part A. You have to have at least Part A to get D. Full stop. All right? So she finds out she doesn't have anything. I get this supplemental program. It's got some questions that she has to answer, and it's got a pre-existing condition limitation. It's the only time that I've seen a pre-existing condition limitation, but these are short-term gap plans, so and they're only meant for a month or two or whatever the situation might be, that person needs gap coverage to carry them through until they get onto Medicare Part A and B. So she's going to apply. She's going to bring me the paperwork, I think, tomorrow. It'll be a couple days for approval, and then she'll pay the premium in that space is roughly about $376 for a 30-day window. She'll be able to cancel it on June 1st, but there's no retro premium. She's basically going to be out. But her attitude is, rightfully so, I want to make sure that I've got some coverage in the event that I have a problem. If you're in your 20s or 30s and you're fairly healthy, I can be on both sides of that equation. Yeah, you can float it. You're probably going to be okay, etc. When you get to be older, things happen. And I'm going to get to a thing like that. Things happen in a second with another story. So she'll be covered because of the research we were able to do till the end of the month. She won't have Part D coverage, though, so she's on her own with prescriptions. You can get Good RX or Single Care or a handful of other things. She doesn't take expensive medications as far as I know, so she should be okay. The last thing she said was, and I've known her family for a long, long time. I'm going to call her husband, John. John will see you in September when he turns 65 in October. So the message here is, if you're signing up, and this person got professional help and still got screwed. Pardon my expression, but that's what happened. The agent didn't do their due diligence to make sure that my client, my friend, not just my client, my friend, Jane, had coverage in place for Part A and B before they put the supplement together. She still would have been out of luck for Part D for the month of May. That would have been okay. That would have been fine. But this really exposed her to potentially thousands of dollars, because when I told her there was nothing at the time, there was nothing I could do. Obamacare can't help her. They won't take her. And I didn't know about the short-term medical plan until a day or two later. She was totally exposed to a potential health care risk. And maybe nothing happens. That's what we all hope for. Make sure that when you're applying for Medicare, you have your Part A and B in place. Now, I'm going to add one other thing here before we go to break. If you're working, and you work for a big company, again, I've said this 100 times, you don't have to do anything. More than 20 employees, you don't have to apply for Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D, nothing. You can stay in your group plan. You can make a decision to go to Part A, B, C, and D. It's a mathematical equation if you want to do that, and then assess, is Medicare better and Part D better than my group plan? In some cases it might be. In most cases it won't be, particularly for bigger companies. But you can do that assessment. An employer cannot put a gun to your head and say, Jane, you got to get off my plan. Now, the reason she fell off is she was on a retiree program, which in that case they can do a provision that says once you turn 65 you have to come off. That's okay. But if you're working and you're working for a big company, you don't have to do anything, and they cannot force you to come off the plan. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if once you're ready to go on to Medicare, you need to apply 90 days in advance of when you're going to go, okay, I'm done. On the 1st of May, I'm done. 90 days in advance of that, call Social Security, get Part A and B. Make sure you've got the numbers, and then consult with an advisor that you trust, who knows what they're doing, whether they're doing Medicare Advantage or a Medicare supplement or both. Make sure you consult with somebody who knows what they're doing. As I said before, I won't take an application until I see your Medicare card, because I need that information to make sure that you're going to be covered. So with that in mind, we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to go to story number 2. My name is Bill Miksch. I'm president of WDMA Financial Group in Grayslake, Illinois. This is Your Insurance Corner. We'll be right back after these short messages.